You ever notice how sometimes, like, even bringing up religion can feel kind of awkward?
Yeah, totally.
Like you're walking on
I
eggshells?
know exactly what you mean.
Well, today we're going to be diving into this piece, and it's called Fear of Public Opinion or Persecution, a call for courage in teaching the Baha'i faith.
Okay,
And it really got me thinking about this pressure to stay silent,
interesting.
even in places where, like, we assume we have religious freedom.
Yeah, you'd think that in the West especially, we would be free to just, express our beliefs.
Right,
But
exactly.
this source is suggesting that there's this like more subtle form of pressure happening, kind of like a fear of being judged or rejected socially.
And it made me wonder, like, is that fear actually holding the Baha'i faith back from, like making a real impact?
That's a good question.
Because, I mean, Shoghi Effendi himself warned about the consequences of, like, staying silent, didn't he?
He did. And what's really fascinating is how he connected that silence to the faith's ability to like contribute to solving the world's problems.
Oh, wow.
It's almost like by holding back, we're kind of depriving society of these potential solutions.
Wow. Okay, so maybe the stakes are higher than just, like, feeling a little awkward at a dinner party.
Yeah, for sure.
Which brings us to this really interesting contrast the source makes between, people in the West today and the early Baha'is in Persia.
Right.
They were facing actual persecution,
Oh, absolutely.
imprisonment, torture, even death,
Yeah.
just for believing.
It's hard to even imagine.
It's crazy. And we're talking about, like, men, women, children, entire families choosing their faith over their own safety.
It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Like, what do you think we can learn from their example, especially in our context today?
Well, it makes me think about how we define courage.
Okay.
It's not always about, like, these grand gestures, right? Sometimes it's about those, like, quiet, everyday acts of resilience.
Nice.
Like simply choosing to live your truth, even when it feels uncomfortable.
And that's a powerful message for anyone, really.
Right.
Regardless of their faith, we all have those moments where we have to decide, like,
No.
do I speak up or do I stay silent?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But the source doesn't just, like, dwell on the problem.
Right.
It also offers some really compelling stories of courage
Oh, yeah?
that I think we can all learn from.
I'd love to hear about those.
Like Tahiri, for example.
Okay.
She was fearless in proclaiming her beliefs, even though it put her directly in the line of fire.
Her story is truly inspiring.
It is.
But it's important to remember that courage exists on a spectrum,
Yeah.
The source also highlights the ongoing struggles of Baha'is living under oppressive regimes today.
Right.
For them, just practicing their faith can be like an act of defiance.
That's a sobering reminder.
It is.
It makes the fear of social judgment seem pretty insignificant in comparison.
I agree.
But I also love that the source includes that story about the Baha'i youth who chose to present their faith for a school project.
Oh, yeah.
That takes guts.
It does. But you know what struck me? It was that by stepping out of their comfort zone, they actually sparked a classmate's curiosity about the Baha'i faith.
Really?
Yeah, it's a small example, but it shows how even like seemingly ordinary actions can have an impact.
And that leads us to something really practical that the source dives into.
Right.
Ways to actually overcome that fear of public opinion.
That's hopeful.
And these aren't just like Baha'i specific either. They're applicable to anyone who wants to share their beliefs but feels held back.
I like that.
Exactly. And it starts with understanding, like, what you believe, right?
Yeah.
The source emphasizes deepening your knowledge
Uh-huh.
because the more confident you are in your convictions, the easier it is to share them.
It's like that saying, knowledge is power.
Totally.
But the source also talks about the importance of prayer or personal reflection.
Yeah.
I guess that's about finding that inner strength and courage to face those moments of doubt.
Precisely. And it also highlights the power of community.
Oh, yeah.
Surrounding yourself with like-minded people.
Yes.
Sharing experiences and learning from each other's challenges, that can be a huge source of support.
For sure, because facing those fears alone can be really daunting.
Right. And it's not about making grand pronouncements either.
No.
The source emphasizes starting small, having those one-on-one conversations,
Yeah.
and staying consistent over time.
It's like planting seeds.
Oh, I like that.
You might not see the result immediately, but with patience and consistency, those seeds can grow into something remarkable.
I love that analogy.
But there's another side to this conversation that the source addresses,
Okay.
the danger of complacency.
Right. Shoghi Effendi warns against just assuming that change will happen automatically.
Yeah.
We can't just sit back and expect things to get better on their own.
Uh-huh.
Individual effort is essential.
Exactly. But there's also this beautiful acknowledgement of a higher power at work.
Uh-huh.
That phrase, the outcome is in God's hands. It really resonated with me.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it?
It is.
That we can do our part, but ultimately we have to surrender the results. And that's where I think we'll leave part 1 of this deep dive.
Okay.
We've been exploring this tension between fearing public opinion and feeling a responsibility to share our beliefs.
Right.
And we've seen how the early Baha'is faced persecution head on, and how their experiences can inspire us to find our own courage, even in seemingly ordinary situations.
Absolutely. It's interesting how this source, it focuses on the Bahá'í Faith, but it really speaks to this universal struggle that we all face.
Yeah, totally. Like, we all have beliefs that we hold dear, and
Exactly.
finding the courage to share those, even when we, risk judgment, that's something everyone grapples with.
Yeah, and this source highlights how the Bahá'í teachings, they encourage us to overcome that fear.
Okay.
But not through forceful arguments or anything.
Right.
It's more about understanding reflection and respectful dialogue.
Right. It's not about converting others.
No, not at all.
But about sharing what's meaningful to us in a way that invites connection rather than conflict.
I like that.
And I think that's where those practical tips from the source come in handy.
Okay.
Deepening our understanding of what we believe, finding that inner strength through prayer or reflection, and leaning on the support of our community.
It's huge.
Those are tools that can help us navigate those kind of tricky situations.
And starting small, too.
Yes.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by the idea of sharing our beliefs.
I know, right?
But the source reminds us that sometimes those most impactful moments happen in those quiet one-on-one conversations.
It's about being authentic and letting those connections unfold organically.
Totally.
But this idea that the outcome is in God's hands, it really struck me.
Yeah.
How does that belief impact the way Baha'is approach sharing their faith?
Well,
especially when they're facing that fear of rejection.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that while our efforts are important, we're also part of a larger process.
It's about trusting that even if we don't see immediate results, the seeds we plant can still contribute to positive change.
Right.
It allows for humility and acceptance, knowing that we can't control the outcome, but we can control our own actions.
That's a good point. It's this beautiful blend of action and acceptance.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
For sure.
But the source doesn't explicitly discuss what happens if we choose to remain silent.
Right.
And I wonder, could there be a cost to not sharing our beliefs?
That's an insightful question.
If we constantly prioritize comfort over authenticity?
Yeah.
Are we missing out on opportunities for personal growth?
It's possible.
Could we even be hindering positive social change?
I see what you're saying.
By holding back our unique perspectives.
That's a good point. It's we're collectively holding our breath.
Right.
Waiting for someone else to speak up first.
Totally.
But what if we all chose to exhale, To
let those truths flow freely.
I like that.
What kind of world could we create?
What a beautiful image. It speaks to the power of individual action.
Exactly.
We each have the capacity to be a catalyst for change, to inspire others, and to contribute to a more just and vibrant world.
Absolutely. This deep dive has given us a lot to ponder.
It really has.
We've explored historical examples of courage, practical tips for overcoming fear, and the potential cost of silence. But before we wrap up part 2,
okay,
I'm going to leave you with a question.
Okay, I'm listening.
That pushes us to consider the impact of our choices.
Okay.
If you knew with absolute certainty that sharing your deepest convictions would make a positive difference in the world,
okay,
would you still hesitate?
It really makes you think.
It does. It really challenges us to look at why we hesitate to share.
Right.
Even when we think it could really help someone else.
Yeah, and maybe that's the whole point of this deep dive.
Yeah.
It's not about forcing our beliefs on anyone,
right,
but about recognizing that our voices have power.
Absolutely.
And by choosing to stay silent,
we
might be missing opportunities to create real change.
And it reminds us that courage isn't always some big dramatic thing.
Right.
Sometimes it's those quiet moments, just sharing, connecting with someone.
Yeah.
Offering our perspective, even if it feels a little scary.
Remember that story about the Baha'i student?
Yeah, the one who presented their faith for a school project?
Yeah, they didn't know how people would react.
Right, but they did it anyway.
They spoke their truth.
And it sparked an interest in their classmate.
Exactly. And think about all the Baha'is around the world who are living their faith in really tough situations.
Under oppressive regimes.
Yeah, their resilience.
Just refusing to be silenced.
It's really powerful.
It is a testament to the power of conviction.
It makes me wonder if we underestimate the impact our words can have.
I think
even in just our everyday lives.
This source has really made us think about the cost of silence.
Yeah.
Not just for ourselves, but for the world around us.
Like we each have a unique perspective to offer, right?
Absolutely.
A piece of the puzzle that could help build a better future.
Exactly.
So what happens when fear keeps those pieces hidden?
Like we're holding on to these amazing gifts, but we're too afraid to share.
Yeah, worried what people might think.
Exactly.
But this deep dive has shown us there's another way.
A better way.
We can step out of our comfort zones.
We can embrace who we are.
Share our gifts.
Trust that even small acts of courage can make a difference.
And it's not about being perfect or knowing everything.
No, not at all.
It's about being ourselves.
Sharing what we know.
Being open to learning and growing.
That's a message we can all take with us.
I think so.
No matter what we believe or where we come from.
We each have something valuable to give.
And the world needs to hear it.
So let's not let fear stop us.
No more holding back.
Let's share our gifts and see what we can create together.
I love that.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive on the power of sharing our beliefs.
It's been a great conversation.
It has. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
And thanks to you, dear listener, for diving deep with us.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep sharing.
And keep shining your light.